Hey everybody, welcome to the Bowfishing Buzz. My name is Matthew.
My name is Derek.
And of course, Bowfishing is Buzz is presented by AMS Bowfishing and
Megamouth Bowfishing sponsoring as well.
You bet. How is everybody doing today? And Derek, I just got to say, we are back on schedule for 3 weeks or 3 episodes in a row here.
Is there some kind of consistency award
Wow.
that we could get for this? Because, boy, we are just on track. And the thing is, we had this one planned out last week already. We are just on top of things here.
That's right. We've got a very, very special guest that we're going to be interviewing today, Derek. I'm really excited about this. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And for those of you that would like to also watch video of this, you can go to the AMS YouTube page and go under the playlist podcast, and there's going to be a bunch of awesome video, just like there is with all of our other podcasts that are out there on YouTube. So if you want to watch some video of the podcast, check it out on the AMS YouTube page under Bowfishing Buzz playlist, and you can watch a bunch of cool content as we're talking along right here.
Yeah. I think one thing too, Matt, if you guys, the listeners at all, if you guys have a certain kind of podcast that we do, I mean, we have lots of people on, and that's really cool to talk to all these people, get their insights on things. If you guys prefer the interviews or if you like certain topics that we talk about, feel free to reach out to us, message us on Facebook, shoot us an email, comment on a YouTube video.
Absolutely.
Because we just try to put out the content that we think you guys will be interested in. And if there's something that you guys want to know or want to cover, by all means, we can throw that in there. It's not like we're on a strict schedule. We just kind of, whatever we feel like talking about, we're going to talk about.
That's right. And just like the canoe bowfishing podcast that we had last year. That was awesome. Somebody he just sent us an information, said, "Hey guys, I got some cool footage shooting some carp out of my canoe, and I got some cool drone footage." Man, that was awesome.
Yeah. Something I think
cool
we should implement too, Matt, is I hear it on other podcasts that I listen to. They'll have like a listener question of the week or a couple questions.
Right.
Like on Dan Patrick's show, they'll call somebody and they'll have a question, or they give their best and worst of the weekend. That would be kind of cool if we started something like that too. Every week we answer a question from a listener type of deal.
Absolutely.
That would be kind of an interesting.
So if you have anything that you want to hear, anything that you want to be heard, if you want to be interviewed, if you don't like the interviews, let us know.
Yep.
Let us know.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, Derek, this past weekend was the Wisconsin Bowfishing Association's annual meeting.
That's right. You were attending.
Went down there, and, I just have to say that I am proud to be part of the WBA because, man, we have such a strong, a strong club. At this annual meeting, there was 37 to 40 people
really
at the meeting here. And, we discussed everything from, youth events to the tournament dates to, just a whole array of bowfishing issues. And, man, our club is strong. We've got some great money that we have in the budget. The WBA is going to be putting $3,000 in both the numbers and the Big 20 divisions for the state tournament this year.
Oh, really? Well,
yeah, and the state tournament is going to be the Green Bay tournament. Actually got voted as being the state tournament, and that's sometime in June here. But I'm just proud to be part of the Wisconsin Bowfishing Association. We've got some great people on the board. We've got people voice their opinions. That's what's cool about these clubs is people voice their opinions, what you don't like, what you do like, and that makes for a strong club.
Sure. Yeah.
And everybody listens.
Having structure like that, like you said, there was a set meeting at a set place with certain people are going to be there. That is really important to the future of the sport and how it's run in the state in regards to tournaments, like you said, youth events. So yeah, it's that's cool that you were down there, Matt, and very cool that we have such a structural club.
Yep. And they work with us as far as when we have. They always call us up. Hey, Matt, when are you guys having your Big 20 this year, so we can schedule our tournament dates around yours, and we work with them also on it, and they help us out with donations. We help them out with donations. So yeah, it's fun to work with a good club like that there. And if you are out there and your state, has those type of clubs, your bow fishing associations, go to those events, join them, make them strong because it just makes it a lot better. Get on the board of directors for those clubs. Just be out there for the bow fishing world to have some type of backbone structure where you live in your area. It just makes it run and more enjoyable for those states that run that. Along with the Bowfishing Association of America, join that as well.
Sure. Before we get too far into this podcast, Matt, I got two things I'm going to bring up. Number one, everyone listening to this podcast is very lucky that Matt and I are at work because it's February 1st and it's 34 degrees outside, and the fishing right now, the ice fishing is off the charts. We both kind of were flirting with the idea of maybe taking today off, but we decided against it. So Matt and I have each been doing our fair share of ice fishing. That's been fun.
Yeah.
But other than that, I just want to let everyone know, Matt, we kind of were going back and forth last week. We're going to change the sequence of how our podcasts are labeled. We're going to go right now. We've had different seasons. At the start of every year, we'd have a new season. So this, like when we started this year in 2022, this was season 4, I believe.
Yes.
And just some research that we've done, it's going to be easier for the end viewer to be able to keep track of what podcast they've listened to when we have them listed in episodic order. So, like, for example, this is going to be episode 29.
Correct.
So when you guys go to say you're on Apple Podcasts and you're looking at our episodes, it's just going to be one big continuous list of podcasts. In the intros for those podcasts, you're going to hear us say season 3, season 2, episode 20, whatever it is.
That.
We can't go in and edit those podcasts, but just so you guys know from a little bit of an easier viewing perspective, we're just going to be going in episodic order. We started at 3-4 years ago, and now we're on 29, and that's going to be how we continue to do that.
Correct.
So just so everybody knows that.
Yep, it's going to be easier to follow along. So this is actually episode
29.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So getting into our guest that we're going to be having on today, Derek, you've got a little intro there.
I do.
A little bit about Mr. Ray Howell. So go ahead and let the audience kind of know a little bit about Ray Howell.
Sure. I just got a little background here for Ray. Ray and his wife, Karen, have a family of 9 children, 30 grandchildren, and 12 great-grandchildren. Holy cow. That's crazy. That's awesome. And they live in southeastern Minnesota. Ray has successfully harvested many Pope and Young whitetails, which are his favorite animal to hunt. Following his boyhood dreams has taken him to the frigid cold and snow of the Arctic, the wilderness areas of Mexico, throughout the forests of Canada and remote regions in the Yukon, and in many of the 50 states, including Alaska, on his quest to harvest the 28 North American animals.
If you think about that, that's amazing right there alone. 28 of the North American big game animals.
Matt, he's only shot one less big game animal than we have total podcasts. That's actually crazy.
Isn't
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Travels to South Africa have allowed Ray to harvest a variety of plains game, which has also been a dream come true for him. Ray has written many magazine articles, and he's been on the covers, featured in those magazines as well. He has also received several prestigious awards: Outdoor Life Top 25 Reader's Choice Award, Pope and Young Club Stewardship Award, Muzzie's Tall Man Award. Ray's competitive nature led him to become involved with the sport of powerlifting, and he successfully broke several drug-free state, national, and world records after he turned 18. Needless to say, I think when Ray puts his mind to something, he gets it done.
But ending off of what you just said about Ray.
Yep, let's hear about this now.
All right. Even with... and not mentioned in that was he had 4 successful businesses that he built from the ground up.
Yep.
All right. Even with all that success and all the stories and memories, his heart still wasn't full.
Yep.
All right. So a lot of you might never have heard of Ray Howell. You don't know what he does. His story is an amazing story and where it leads him to today. All right. Leading off of your stuff there, Derek, with all of his amazing accomplishments, one thing that I want to give you some stats here for America, all right? These are statistics in America of fatherless homes, okay? 43% of children in the U.S. live without a father.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Isn't that something? They are 4 times more likely to live in poverty. 7 times more likely to become pregnant as a teen. 71% of high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. 63% of fatherless kids are victims of youth suicides. 85% of youth in prison grew up in a fatherless home. 90% of homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes. And 75% of youth in chemical abuse centers are from fatherless homes.
Terrible.
So you can kind of guess where I'm going here with this and what Ray has done. He's done some amazing things. So we're going to get Ray on the phone here and listen to his story. Listen to how he got to where he is now. And I can honestly tell you right now that Ray's heart is full.
Yeah. All those accomplishments that I read off to you guys, Ray has found his calling in mentoring kids. And it really is it's a heartwarming story. Just reading a little bit of the write-up that you had, Matt, it really is cool how he had all these accomplishments. He could have rested on his laurels and had a fantastic life, but
Absolutely.
But he knew that he wanted to go and change some children's life. And we won't get too much into it. Ray will explain that, but we're going to give Ray a call here and just see what he can all share with us today.
So let's get Ray on the phone here.
Hello.
Hi, Ray. This is Matthew, and I'm here with my partner and co-host here, Derek Schmidt.
Hey, Ray.
And welcome to the Bowfishing Buzz, Ray.
Yeah, thank you. I love buzzing on a boat, bowfishing, I can tell you that.
I love it. Well, Ray, we kind of gave a little intro about some of your amazing accomplishments in archery, bodybuilding competition, what you've all done with that. But yet we kind of ended it with even with all those accomplishments, Ray, your heart still wasn't full. And we read off some stats about children living in fatherless homes here in America. And what I would like from you, Ray, is to give our audience, some of them probably have never heard of you, or they have never heard about the program that you're doing right now. But if you could give the audience your story from the beginning as a young child to where you are now, Ray, and how your heart has been filled because of what you are doing right now for the youth here in many parts of America right now.
When I was 5 years old, I was a pretty happy kid. I had my brothers and sisters, and it was a pretty normal home. Every day we were at home, and Mom was there and cooking meals and being Mom. But the fun part was when my dad came home from work. Every day we stood at the window about the same time waiting for Dad to come home. And when the car pulled into the driveway and he got out of it, it was game on. I'll tell you what, my dad was fun. He'd get into the house and we'd try tackling. We're hanging on his legs and he's carrying us around and hooting and howling and having fun. And it was just, it was awesome.
Cool.
And, on the weekends when he didn't have to work, we got to do things with Dad. I remember a lot of different things. One of the things that had happened that was a scary thing to me as a kid was we took his old truck out and going through the woods and bouncing and hooting and howling and having a good time. And he got into a mud hole and got the truck stuck. And, a 5-year-old kid, I'm standing there, man, we're stuck. We're in the woods. We're in the middle of nowhere. And I was a little scared.
Sure.
And I didn't think we were going to get out of there. And, my dad became the hero, and he got us home to Mom, and everything was back to normal. And, man, there was a lot of joy and laughter at that time in my life. And, one day I was in the house, and my Mom and Dad were in the back hallway, and I heard them talking. So I walked around through the hallway, and I saw my dad talk to my Mom, and not in any kind of violent way or holler and yell. And he come right out and said to her, he said, "I'm leaving." And just his words were so clear, I knew he was telling the truth.
Wow.
And and they were continuing to talk. I went out the front door, and I hid into the back seat of his car because there's no way I'm going to let my dad go without me. And anyway, it wasn't very long, and they found me in the car, and they grabbed a hold of me and pulled me out of the car, and I'm kicking and screaming, "Dad, don't go without me." And, I don't know where my brothers and sisters were at that time, but I remember all this going on with me. And I'm on the ground, they're holding me down, and my dad was like a different person, like he didn't even know me.
Oh, wow.
And no matter what I said, it didn't matter. And he got in the car and pulled out of the driveway and drove down the road. And I'll tell you something, what a sad day.
Wow,
And,
I can imagine, yeah.
It was like a dark cloud now has come over the family. My mom was different, and the sad part about it was, too, my brothers and sisters and me stood at the window every day at that time waiting for my dad to come home, and he never came back home.
Wow.
And quite a while went by, and my mom was different. Everything was different.
I can imagine.
I don't know how to explain. I don't know how to explain that. It was just
Sure.
just not like it used to be, but
the household, the whole household, normalcy of the household was changed right then and there for you.
Well, when you have the leader of the home gone,
right,
then I didn't realize time. Mom's got to take care of the bills. She's got to take care of this and that, and all the mouths to feed and everything else. It was, it's overwhelming.
Sure.
And a little while went by, and I remember the doorbell ringing. I was just standing in the right place. Went over, opened up the door. Here's this great big guy standing there with a little short lady. She was about half the size. And he looks at me and he points at me. He says, "You're Raymond. I'm your Grandpa Obert." And I never met him before. And all of a sudden, man, this is fun stuff. I mean, somebody really likes me. I mean, this is cool. And he comes in the house and we're talking and with Mom and everybody. And there was a happiness there again.
Sure.
I don't know how to explain it. Everybody's happy, upbeat. And as things are going on, Grandpa said, "Well, guys, we're going to pack you up and you're going to move home with us." And no kidding, my grandpa packed us up, and we moved from Detroit, Michigan to La Crosse, Wisconsin. And, my grandpa became my dad.
Sure.
He was an awesome man. And I had so much fun with my grandpa. And he bought me my first bicycle. I got to go fishing. The cool thing about it was he would take me on the days that he had off, and he'd take me out. We'd go get coffees and donuts with his friends and stuff. I mean, he really treated me like I was somebody. And anyway, school and everything was pretty normal. And we were living in a small house, but I'll tell you, there was no welfare. It was my grandpa worked hard, and so did my grandma and my mom. But it was family.
Yep.
And so as things are going, everything is. I'm about 12 years old, and I thought my grandpa had the flu or something, but he kept getting sicker and sicker. And next thing you know, he was in bed quite a bit at a time, and my grandpa just wasn't the same. My grandpa was a great big guy. How could somebody like that get sick like that? And so they took my grandpa to the hospital, and then my mom and my grandma sat us all down and said, "Grandpa's really sick. He's got what they call crawling stomach cancer."
Oh.
And I didn't know what that was. I mean, it just to me, it's like the flu or something. And so he's going to the hospital. He's going to get fixed up, but he's coming back. And, Matt, I would go to the hospital all the time after school, and I would visit my grandpa. And one day I went into the hospital to visit him. They wouldn't let me in the room. And my grandpa passed away. And there again, this dark cloud is over us again.
Right.
And now with my grandma and my mom, and we're a little older now, there's confusion. There's the leader of the family is gone. My hero, my best friend, my father figure, I'm lost. And anyway, things changed so much that the focus wasn't on the kids like it should be with Mom and everything. And I'd go to school, and Matt, I'll tell you what, it got bad. Oh. I wasn't the best at sports and stuff. And next thing you know, you're getting teased, and then there's bullies at school. And I got the ever-living daylights beat out of me a couple times at school, like you wouldn't believe. I actually ended up in the hospital because a kid stuck me in the hip with a metal compass.
Oh, my
gosh. And I got blood poisoning from it. The story behind that's unbelievable. But so I hated going to school.
Yeah.
And the same thing with my brothers and sisters. It was just my mom did her best. I will tell you that. And so did my grandma. I mean, they did their best. But that kind of stuff going on, I started hanging around with other kids that say they had the same problems as me, that didn't have a dad. It was the kids that you see on the corners that were smoking cigarettes and talking and stuff like that. Those were the kids. And anyway, I started hanging around with them to keep away from the bullies and stuff, and just have friends that I could talk to. And the next thing you know, I started hanging out on the beach, and we put tents up, and we're camping out. And I didn't like school, so I didn't go to school. I started skipping school, and I started not coming home at night. And when you're 13 to 14 years old, the whole world is there. It's all there.
Right.
I mean, there's girls, and there's drinking, and there's partying, and driving in cars, and all. This is all an incredible world.
Sure.
You know something? I stepped right into it, and I'll tell you what, Matt, I was out of control. And I remember going down the back roads of Alaska, Wisconsin, in a Chevy convertible with my friends. And I looked at the speedometer, and it said 110 miles an hour.
Oh my gosh!
And anyway, one day I went home. I love my mom very much. I went home, and when I got there, there was a strange man in the house with a couple other people, and this guy was intimidating. I walked in, and I went to see my mom, and he says, Raymond, yeah? He says, I want you to sit down in that chair. And who's this guy?
Yeah.
And I sat down in the chair, and man, I didn't realize it, but I lost my freedom. They come right out and said, you kids are out of control, and therefore your mom and grandma can't take care of you, so we got new homes for you.
Oh, wow.
And just like that, they marched me out and my brothers and sisters out the door and took us 2 different cars, 2 different ways, and I got put into a foster home up in Holman, Wisconsin that was actually a work farm. And there was 5 other boys there, and those boys, I'll tell you what, were the kind of kids you wouldn't want your kids hanging around with. Those kids had been in trouble. Anyway, my life turned into freedom on the beach, partying and goofing around, to getting up every morning, milking cows, going to school smelling like a cow, and coming home and milking cows. I didn't get to go out for sports. I didn't get to go hunting. I didn't get to go fishing. I didn't get to do nothing except chores.
Right.
And it was like being in a prison. There was no walls or bars or barbed wire, but I couldn't get out of this life. And so one day I'm on a school bus, and I hated it. I'm on a school bus going to school, and I thought I had enough of it. All the kids got off the school bus. I was probably the last kid off the bus. Everybody walked into the school but me. I walked over to the highway, and I hitchhiked back to the La Crosse area.
Oh, wow.
I went back down. Yeah, I went back down with my friends, and I'll tell you what, I was free again. It was partying and goofing around. Nobody's got me milking cows and doing what they want. And what ended up happening was probably about a week went by, and the police picked me up. And for truancy, they gave me 3 days off of school. My 3 days were spent in jail. They're going to teach me a lesson. And I'll tell you what, Matt, I wasn't the kind of kid that took lessons very well. I got put in jail for 3 days. Then they would take me back to the foster home, and everything would go back to the same way it was. Get up, milking cows, going to school smelling like a cow. I want you to know I learned how to work, and I loved working, but working for people that didn't really care about you, and all they wanted was, it was a different life. And so every chance I had, I ran away. I could run away and go back down with my friends, and I'd get picked up and thrown back in jail. And it was like a evolving door. But I remember the last time that I ran away was the 5th time. And I for whatever reason, I wanted to see my mom. And she was the only person that cared about me. So I ran away. I went to my mom's house to see her, and I was talking to my mom. I wasn't there 5 minutes. And the police had the back doors and the front doors, and I couldn't get out. And they walked me out to the car, put me in the car, and I'm heading to jail. I didn't even get to goof around with my buddies. I'm going back to the jail and to the foster home. And in the car, I broke down because I realized that it was probably my mom that called the police. And now the only person in the world that cared about me just called the police on me, and I'm going to jail.
Wow.
I have nobody in my life. I have nobody. And that night, I was sitting in jail. I am upset. I'm a kid. I'm upset. I don't have, this is a bad life. I don't have a life that like other kids do. I don't get to do things. I'm in jail just because I didn't have a dad. And I remember crying. I knelt down on a concrete floor and leaned up against the metal bed, and I prayed to a God I didn't know. And I said, God, would you please put somebody in my life that no matter what would happen would never leave me.
Right.
And it was just wishful thinking. And anyway, I'm there for 3 days. The last day, they got the worst tasting coffee and cornflakes in the world in jail. I'll tell you that. I remember getting up that morning, having that coffee, and I sat down on this steel bench where they had all the magazines. And here's a magazine I never saw before. And I'm looking at that magazine. I opened up, and man, there's pictures of bears and moose and elk, and there were stories about Africa. And I'm thinking to myself, man, do people really get to do this stuff? I mean, are these places real? And I'm looking at this, and for a little while, I'm out of my depression, and all of a sudden, I remember hearing the bars of that door slamming down, bang, and the door opens up, and there's the parole officer. He's standing there, and he says to me, come on, Ray, I got to take you back home. Well, I'm going to tell you something. There was no going back to a foster home. At that point in my life, I didn't care if I lived or died. I was not suicidal. I just didn't care anymore. I was sick and tired of the life I was living, and I had made a plan up that when he got me in the car, we're going to drive down the road, and the first stop sign I see, I'm jumping out of that car, and I'm taking off running, because I don't have anybody around that cared about me in even my home, my mom or anybody. I'm taking off. I'm going to go to the big cities. That's my plan. I was scared to death, but I'm going because I didn't care. And I remember it was like walking the plank when I was behind him going out to the car. And I'm sure he knew something was wrong. I got in the car, and we're driving down the road, and I'm looking for the stop sign. And as we're going, all of a sudden he looks at me and he says, Ray, I saw you read a hunting magazine in there. He said, do you like to go hunting? I said, well, I've never gone hunting. And he said, I'll tell you what, you promised me that you won't run away from your foster home again. He said, I'd like to take you hunting with me and my sons, and in the meantime, I'm going to find you a better home to live in. And you know something? I'm a kid scared to death. But this man just offered me a dream. And is he really going to do it? Because, Matt, when I was a kid, anybody ever told you they were going to take you hunting and fishing, and they never showed up.
Right.
But so I'm sitting there, and I said to him, I promise you, I'm not going to run away. I would like to go hunting. And no kidding, I went back to the foster home, got up every morning, milked cows, went to school smelling like cow, and every day I did what I promised I was going to do, but I had this dream that he was really going to take me hunting. And one day my foster mother walked up to me and said, Ray, Tom wants to come on Friday with his boys and pick you up and take you to their cabin and go hunting. Do you want to go? I'll tell you something, Matt. You could have heard me scream at the top of my lungs. Are you kidding me? This is really going to happen?
Wow.
And no kidding, he came and picked me up. We went to a cabin out in Black River Falls in the middle of nowhere. There was a big pond behind the cabin. Pulled out the bows and arrows. They were teaching how to shoot bows. And I mean, they had hunting clothes for me, and the stories were just incredible. His sons were like brothers to me, and we were having fun. This is incredible.
Yeah.
And I remember, it's time to hit the sack. We got to get up at 4:30 in the morning. And you know something, Matt? Never seen a deer in the wild. My heart is pounding. Oh man, tomorrow I get to go hunting. I'm going to see a deer. And I couldn't sleep that night. Wow. I had my hunting clothes on. I never went to sleep that night. And I remember the alarm clock going off at 4:30 in the morning. And when the alarm clock went off, about 2 seconds afterwards, bang, the one-bedroom door in the cabin opens up, and there's Tom, and then the boys come out, and everybody's a little groggy, and all of a sudden Tom goes out the back door, and the boys follow him out. Come on, Ray, this is tradition.
Wow, that's awesome.
Those guys
that's cool.
Yeah, they went off. and jumped off the dock and jumped in the lake. It's dark outside. It's
Oh my
cold out.
gosh.
They're splashed around the water at 4:30 in the morning. They're telling me, "Come on, Ray, this Chris, you got to jump in here. You guys are nuts. I ain't jumping in that water." And
yeah, because what this is like November, right?
well, it was September. So
okay.
Toward the end of September.
All right.
But still, it was just. And anyway, it wasn't very long that I jumped in that water with them, and I was a part of the family.
Wow.
And what an unbelievable weekend. I saw my first deer. I had buck fever so bad I couldn't think straight. I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And on the way home from the hunt, Tom told me, he said, "I want you to know you're going to be 18 years old soon." Well, when you're talking to a kid that's 14 years old or so, and you're telling him you're going to be 18 years old, that's forever.
Yeah.
And he says, "You're going to be 18 years old soon, and when you turn 18, he says, you can have your own family, you can have your own job and make your own money, and you can go hunting. You're an American, and you're free, and nobody can hold you back.
Wow.
This is what you got to look forward to."
Wow.
And you know something? Tom took me hunting 4 times during my high school career. He helped me get into a better foster home. I actually got to go out for sports and do some other things in the home. So he helped me through it.
Sure.
But when I turned 18 years old, it was like somebody let the cat out of a bag. I'm going to tell you what. I turned 18 years old. No more foster homes, man. I'm going to school. I'm working 2 jobs. I'm in love. 1 month after I turned 18, I got married. And I'm going to tell you what. I'm living a dream. Everything that Tom is telling me is coming true. The harder I worked, the more money I made, and I got to do things that I wanted to do. I started doing those. The next thing you know, 1 year after I got married, my wife she was pregnant.
Yep.
And I remember her stomach getting bigger and bigger. And I'm always got my ear in the stomach. Listen, I mean, this is really cool stuff. I'm gonna have a baby. I mean, this is, and I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
When the baby was born, I named her Danielle, and I was holding her in my arms. I'm looking at her, and I've had tears in my eyes. I get to be a dad. This is unbelievable. I don't even know what I did. I get to be a dad. And I looked at her, and I said, "Danny, I'm going to give you everything I never had, but most of all, you're going to have a dad."
Wow.
And, boy, I mean, this is unbelievable. So, you know what happens, man? I start working harder. I start doing more stuff because now, I mean, this is really happening. And that year, too, was the first year I was bow hunting, and it was in the wintertime, and I shot this great big doe with my bow, and I couldn't believe it. I killed a deer with a bow. And I put that deer in the back of my car, and I drove around. I was the most proud person you've ever met in your life. And anyway, so as things are going, I'm now 23 years old, and I got 5 kids. They're popping out left and right. I mean, it's unbelievable. I'm making really good money at the job, and but I just couldn't make ends meet. The hospital bills and everything. And, my grandfather was such an incredible influence in my life. He was a welder. He had started a shop at one time. And I really looked up to him. I remember telling myself, well, my grandpa did that. I can do it too. And you know what I did, Matt? I quit a perfect good job, and I went into business for myself. And I went out and bought a welding machine and a cutting torch and a couple other things that I had to borrow some money for. And I started a business. And I will tell you right now, it was the fear of failure for my family that made me succeed, because there was no way I was not going to have food on the table for those kids. And there was no 40 hours a week. It was whatever it took.
Right.
And, the business started to grow and things started happening. And the other thing that was, I didn't drink or get involved with all that kind of stuff. I was so focused on the kids and doing what I was doing, but there was a lot of stress. So when I got beat up when I was a kid, this really happened to me. When I got beat up when I was a kid, there was nothing I could do about it. I couldn't defend myself. So when I turned 18, one of the things I started doing was I started weightlifting.
Yeah.
And what happened was when I started the business, I had to have a stress reliever besides. So I started working out in the middle of the day, and I'd go back to work. And I thought, my friends invited me to get into a powerlifting tournament in Fox Valley. And I thought I'd do pretty good at it, you know.
Sure.
And Matt, I went to that tournament. I got my hind end beat so bad. And I mean, I got beat bad. And here I thought I was going to do pretty good, but I didn't realize how competitive I was. And what ended up happening was I really worked at it, and I stayed in the drug-free competition in the raw category.
Yeah.
And after about 10 years of it, I would win first place once in a while. And what ended up happening was after about 15 to 20 years of it, I started setting some records and winning first place just about every tournament I went to.
Wow.
And I remember going to Independence, Wisconsin, just to do a meet there. And when I went to that meet, I had set a world record in the bench press. And and what an accomplishment! I mean, I couldn't believe it. And I'd set that record. It was a dream come true. Well, about 2 months after I'd set that record, I got a letter from the United States Powerlifting Association, and in that letter, they asked me if I would consider competing in the 242-pound class for the United States. And there was a tournament coming up in Idaho Falls in the fall. I couldn't believe it. I looked at that letter. I said, Karen, look at this. I said, let's just put this in a frame and put it on the wall. Because this does not happen to people. And anyway, what did, and this really happened. This is not bragging. This happened. I'm a guy working hard and just trying to keep his head straight. And anyway, and I was using the lifting just to keep the stress off me. I trained for that tournament, and I trained hard. And when I left, I went there with my wife, Karen, and I get there, it's a 5-day tournament. There's people from all over the world. There's all different colors and all different sizes, and everybody's looking at you grumpy. Everything's in kilos instead of pounds. And I mean, there was teams there from other countries, and they had their interpreters, and it was a whole different atmosphere. So during the tournament, I did the best I could do. And I knew I did okay, but the Russians were watching every move I made. It was almost annoying to me. And there was one guy, he was really good. And I knew he was in my weight class, but I tried not to get distracted by what they were doing. I wanted to do my personal best. And anyway, after the 5th day, they were handing out all the awards. And there was a factor in there, how much you weighed compared to how much you lifted to. And I wasn't sure. Everything was goofed up with the kilo stuff. And anyway, I was sitting there with my wife, and I remember just openly saying to her, Karen, if the Russian is called up for second, I know we got first. And, it was just a dream. You don't know. And anyway, they called from 5th to 2nd place, and they called him up. And that, I immediately got emotional. I couldn't.
That's unreal.
I couldn't believe it. Yeah, and
that is.
They called my name for first place. A kid from a broken home. They called me up, and I grabbed my wife by the hand, and I took her right up on the stage with me.
Did you? Good. Good.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I'll tell you something. My wife is truly a gift from God, and I did not accomplish the things I did or have done on my own. And we're up there, and they're playing the national anthem. The flag is there, and I'm bawling like a baby.
Wow, that's unreal.
Anyway,
unreal.
that happened, and as the business grew, and I got to start chasing my dreams with a bow, and I became a perfectionist in my shooting. I shot high poundage bows, and the reason I shot the equipment I shot is I wanted 2 holes in an animal, an entrance and an exit hole. I always used a 2-blade head with heavy arrows. I was actually shooting a 655 grain arrow with a 104-pound bow. And the accuracy was just incredible. But you know something, that too, I shot all the time. And it was nothing to shoot 100 rounds. And I got to the point where learning everything I learned about a bow, learning how to tune it, learning what really makes that arrow accurate. Man, I started shooting long-distance shots, not to shoot animals at long distance. When I shot long distance and dropped the arrows in there, it gave you confidence. It made you a really good short-range shooter. I mean, most of the animals that
Right.
I would harvest were between 40 and 50 yards. So if you could hit something at 100 yards, you had your confidence. It was a chip shot, so to speak.
Sure.
If
Yep.
you could hold your nerves. And anyway, there was a lot of things started happening. I started chasing my dreams. I remember being able to go on moose hunts and elk hunts. I harvested a brown bear and a grizzly bear, and then I got to hunt a polar bear. And I mean, all these things were just incredible. And so as I was doing things, I had different companies that call me up. Ray, you're using our equipment. We'd like to do some stuff with you. Well, to me, I was chasing my dreams. That was what it was about. But these companies are saying, hey, can we use some of your stuff? And the next thing you know, they're called me a part of a pro staff or an ambassador to their company, and they're actually giving me equipment and paying me to use their stuff, which was kind of neat because it helped with some of the hunts and stuff.
Right.
But then Gander Mountain gets a hold of me, and they sit me down. It's unbelievable, all that went on with them. But the president of the company says, "Ray, we want you on our team, and we want you doing stuff with us." And I said, "Okay, good. That'd be great." And anyway, what they started doing with me, they would have me do these ribbon cuttings. And so I will tell you, I don't care how accurate you are or how much of an ice cube you are when it comes to a stressful situation. When you're standing there with 300 to 600 people around you, and you got a ribbon that's about an inch wide at 21 yards, a little high or a little low.
Wow.
And I'll tell you what, you find out what kind of man you are when you got to pull that second arrow on. And it is just,
Wow.
And I got stories for you. So what they would do is they'd have me come there, the mayor would talk, and I'd step up and I'd cut the ribbon with an arrow instead of with the scissors. And it was really a cool thing. I remember so many times the wind blowing or this or that, and it would rain and to beat the band one time. But out of all the ribbon cuttings, I actually cut about 70 ribbons altogether. That was the growth of that company
kidding.
at that time.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Wow.
So things were going really well, and my wife Karen, and I know you've met her, Matt, but anybody that meets her, she's just wonderful. How God gifted me with that. So I remember coming home from work one day, and I don't remember what I said or what I did, and Karen looks right at me and she says, "Ray, I came into your life to help save you." I looked at her and said, "Save me? What are you talking about?" I said, "You got a house, you got a car, you got food, you got gas. You don't need anything. I provided everything. How are you going to save me?" And I just about snapped. But I knew something about her that I didn't understand at the time. Karen loved the Lord more than she loved me. And I couldn't explain that. I was number 2 in her life.
Right.
And going forward, and all this celebrity status that I had, I was on TV, I was in videos all the time. I was any magazine you picked up, there was pictures of critters that I had harvested. This was all happening, and in the world of powerlifting, man, I was at the top.
Wow.
And so I made a lot of money.
Yeah.
In the business I was in. She says that to me. So what ended up happening was I went to Texas, and there was a big event that they had out there, and I was a part of that event. And there was another friend of mine by the name of Pat Quinn, who was a very accomplished bow hunter, and he's a wonderful man. The only thing about Pat, he looks like a movie star. And I'll tell you, we were always kidding around. But we went to that event, and Karen was with me, and all of a sudden, Pat and Karen are talking and talking and talking. And, you know, Matt, I got a beautiful wife.
Yep.
The next thing you know, I'm starting to turn a little green, and I'm starting to get a little swolled up. Why? Is Pat falling in love with my wife?
Right.
And I'm not kidding you, it went on for about 45 minutes, and there's hundreds of people around. Finally, I had it. I walked right up to Pat and Karen, and I said to them, "What's going on here?" And they both turned and looked at me and said the exact same words at the same time. They said, "We're talking about your salvation." I said, what? And, I knew how to walk up to Pat and grab him by the collar and say, stay away from my wife.
Yep.
I didn't know how to handle what was just said to me.
Sure.
I shook my head and I walked away from him.
Oh.
And to me, it was strange stuff.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that week, Pat Quinn did one of the boldest things a man could do. Pat called me out of the blue, and he talked to me on the phone. He said, Ray, I want to talk to you about having your own personal relationship with Jesus Christ. I never heard anything like this at all, man. I've never heard nothing like this. How can I have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ? I married a woman who loved the Lord, but I just didn't get it.
Right.
And anyway, that following week, I went to church on Sunday with Karen because of family stuff, but I just went there to be with her, and she sings, and she just got a beautiful voice. I just like being with her. I was sitting in church, and guess what day it was? It was Father's Day.
Oh, wow.
And I'm sitting in church, and I started thinking about my dad, and I want to tell you something, Matt. I hated my dad. I did not even like the way I looked, because I looked like my dad.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, if I would have seen my dad on the streets when I was younger, it would not have been good.
Wow.
And somebody else got to have him for a dad, and he had a whole different family, and it was bad. And I blamed him for all that stuff that went on. And anyway, I'm sitting in church, and I started thinking about the family I had and my children, and I think, man, I wouldn't change anything. And you know something, Matt? That day, I forgave my dad for everything that he had done to me and my brothers and sisters, because it takes two. And, I uncontrollably started crying in church, a grown man. I mean, I'm sitting in church crying next to my wife, and she looks at me and says, what's the matter? I said, well, I just forgave my dad.
Wow.
And I want to tell you something. If you have hatred in you for somebody else, you don't know what kind of weight that is pulling you down. Mm-hmm. And, when I walked out of that church, it was like I was a different person.
Sure.
And so going forward, I had another ribbon cutting to do. This is amazing. This thing was just going just about every weekend. I had to go someplace. Jeez. And I was working and had to go here, and I'm trying to hunt besides. And anyway, I had another ribbon cutting. And I'll tell you something. I really did not want to miss the ribbon on the first shot. A lot of times when I went there, it was on TV. The news was there. The mayor was there. And a lot of times Fox or NBC would be there. I didn't want to mess up. And so it was pressure on me. So I would get out and practice. Well, for whatever reason, I decided that day, I thought, well, if I can hit a ribbon at 100 yards, 21 yards is a walk in the park. And I'd never tried this before. So I put 5 ribbons on the target. And I went back to where I shoot at 100 yards. I drew back. I took the top of my 100-yard pin, and I touched it on the bottom of the top ribbon, and I released that arrow, and that arrow cut right through that ribbon.
Oh, my gosh.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And,
jeez.
I always used the top of my pin just like an old rifle sight, so you could see what you were aiming at. If you cover it, you didn't know if you were left or right, or because it's so far away. Well, using the very top of it and touching the bottom of what you wanted to hit made it very accurate as far as left and right and up and down. So anyway, I couldn't believe it. I cut that ribbon. And, I didn't have a camera guy with me, which is a whole other story in itself. And I always had the camera people with me. But I ended up cutting 5 ribbons in a row, and it's humanly impossible to do something like that at that range.
Sure.
I cut 5 of them in a row.
Wow.
And that's what went through my head. It's impossible. How did I do this? I mean, you could get your head all swole up about how good you are, but anything I ever did in my life, it wasn't how good I was. It was always how persistent I was. In business or in powerlifting or chasing animals, it wasn't how good I was. It was how persistent I was. If you missed 10 times on a stock, the 11th stock might be the perfect one, and it's kind of how it went. And the same thing with powerlifting. And so, and also in business too, it was a trial all the time. But anyway, I walked up to that target, and there is 5 arrows in the center of that target, straight up and down. And the ribbons are laying to the side. And I looked at that, and I told myself, this is humanly impossible to do. I just cannot believe this. I'm having the best shooting day of my life. And I started pulling the arrows out, and I'm thinking to myself, gosh, God had to be guiding these arrows. I mean, there's just no way.
Right.
And I got to the last arrow, Matt, and that's just what got in my head.
Wow.
Okay, God had to be guiding these arrows. Was he guiding my life ever since I was 5 years old?
Mm-hmm.
Did everything happen to me happen for a purpose? And then what Karen said to me came into my head, and then what Pat said to me came into my head.
Mm-hmm.
Is God real? I mean, is it real? And anyway, I pulled the arrows out. I put 5 more ribbons on the target. I said, I'm going to shoot again. I'm going to call the camera guy because I'm going to film this because nobody will ever believe it. Anyway, I started walking back to where I stood, and I got about halfway back, and it was just like somebody hit me in the back with a club. I went to my knees. I knew the truth. I raised my bow up with the arrows, and I said, from now on, Lord, this is no longer to my glory, it's to yours. I made my second promise in life. I promised him that if he would forgive my sins, that I would follow him and just guide me in what he wanted me to do.
Yep.
And you know something, Matt? In the next few minutes, I had more wisdom come in my head than I've ever had. This is amazing. Mm-hmm. And God put it on my heart right there. All the trophies that I have on my wall in my trophy room, and my trophy room is big, and there's hundreds of animals in there. The day I died, there was those animals are going to be on somebody else's wall, and my name's not even going to be on them. So what did I accomplish there? Nothing but for Ray Howell. All the money I had, and the money I had in the bank, I'll tell you something, when you got a lot of money, you don't even know who your friends are.
Sure.
You think you got friends, they're just there for the money. And they hadn't figured out where they had the money spent before I was even dead. And you know something, I can't take that money with me when I go. So what did I accomplish there? Nothing. And the records that I set in powerlifting, I wanted to be the strongest 242-pound man in the world. Nobody would break my records ever. I knew somebody with a little better technique and a little better day than I had and worked on it as long as I had would break my records. And, Matt, they have been broken. My name's not even at the top of the record books anymore. Mm-hmm. So what did I accomplish there? Nothing for Ray Howell.
Oh.
And God put it on my heart right there. He said, you've only got so much time on this earth. I don't know if I got tomorrow or not, but I want to go forward and to let every kid know, no matter what their problems are, I have a purpose for them, and it's not the garbage on the streets. And, Matt, it really came around there. Everything that happened to me in my life happened for a purpose. Yep. And I knew the truth, and I just made my second promise, and I now what am I going to do? I got to tell my wife. And mm-hmm. So I walked up to Karen, and I said, Karen, I gave my heart to the Lord today. I made a promise that from now on, I was going to let every kid know that no matter what their problems are, God's got a purpose for them, and it's not the garbage on the streets. And my wife looked at me, and she said, you do what you think is best, and I'm sticking with you.
That's awesome.
And Matt, yeah, no matter what the storms have been, no matter what the troubles have been, see, at that point, I had walked away from my business. I walked away from hunting the way I did, and I walked away from the powerlifting the way I did. And my people, I lost 95% of my friends that day. Wow. I mean, things really changed. Yep. So there's a lot of stories to it, to keeping your promise, but mm-hmm. God knew what I needed in my life, and it was her. As a matter of fact, when I was 13, 14 years old, kneeling down in jail, praying to a guy that I didn't know at that time and asking him to put somebody in my life that would never leave me, I want to tell you something, Matt. If I would have known that he had Karen planned for me, I would have been the happiest kid in the world. Wow. I probably wouldn't have gone through the things I needed to learn and go through in order to be a kid like that.
Yep.
And what's happened with that, the ministry was started. I don't feel that I'm the founder. I feel I'm a founding servant. The ministry is God's ministry. I felt that I was called to it. And so for now, 23 years, we've been putting on events all over the United States. And those events are totally free to the kids because a single-parent mom or a grandma or grandpa who can't afford $10, their kids can't go to the event. God put it on my heart right off the bat. we got to raise our own funds. We got to put the stuff together so those kids can be a part of it. And you know something, Matt? That's exactly what happens. We put on an event, and gosh, it's just unbelievable. We get kids that have never shot a bow before, never held a fishing pole, and with bow fishing, we always put a target in the pond so they can see what bow fishing is. I mean, all the hooting and the hollering and the yelling at kicking bear events is just pulling these kids away from what the devil's got for them out in the concrete and the steel, and and take them into an environment where they got dreams put in their heart.
Right.
And so that's what kicking bear is really about. And we had I talked to you about it the one time because it's really heartfelt to me that we had all the bow fishing boats show up, and the guys are going to take the kids from kicking bear bow fishing, and I got to be in the boat with some of the older kids, and these kids, some of them don't even know each other, and yet they got so much respect for each other. One kid gets more shots than the other, and they're switching spots just so other kids can get shots, and we're buzzing down the road, down the river in the middle of the night, and it just hit me so hard. Okay, if these kids weren't on the boat tonight, where would they be? What would they be doing? And I just felt so blessed to be a part of a ministry that takes kids and shows them a better way of life. And teaming up with good people like yourself, man, I'm telling you, we've had fun. And doing what we're doing. But that's how Kicking Bear got started. I just, 2 years ago, before the COVID, we did 122 events throughout the United States, and the average event was 600 people.
Wow.
And nobody paid a dime to
Unreal.
be part. Yep. And when we find out what kids don't have dads in their lives, and we take them on group fishing trips and group hunting trips, take them on group trips of bow fishing and turkey hunting. And, man, you cannot believe how the lives are changed through being around good people. Most of the time, these kids are around people that there's drinking and carrying on. When we're together with them, it's almost like it's strange to them. And these kids will open up and tell you what's going on in their life, and it's horrible.
Right.
But we got the opportunity because God has given us dreams, and we got to chase our dreams, to turn around and share those dreams with kids that don't have the opportunity to and are going down the wrong path.
Absolutely.
So,
and
an interesting life.
Like, Kicking Bear started in 2000, I believe, is when you got the program going. And what it does is it gives kids an opportunity to enjoy the outdoors, archery, tug of wars. You have piggyback races, you have tough man races. And it is something that has, when I look at the pictures on your Facebook page, on the websites, you see kids with smiles on their faces, enjoying life, enjoying the outdoors, and enjoying each other. It's just simply amazing of what you have done for these kids and given them opportunities. Because, like, for yourself, your story began as one man giving you a chance, one person giving you a chance. Hey, Ray, I see you're reading a hunting book there. You want to go hunting? And that's how that started. So it's just unbelievable of what I've been to a couple of your camps. I know we do the Kicking Bear youth bow fishing events for the last 2 years now. We're looking forward to doing another one this year. But Ray, I'm telling you, what you are doing for these kids, and to hear some of these stories on your website is unbelievable.
I gotta tell you, Matt, I really can't take credit for that. We got an awesome God.
Yes.
And from the day I was 5 years old, He had a plan for me. And at one point, I forgave my dad, and I understood things. But I also learned too that I wanted to make $1 million, and I thought if I made $1 million, I got it made. Well, when I made my first $1 million, I wanted to make 2. Then I wanted to make 3. And I found there was no cap to that. All of a sudden, it's got a grip on you. And the same thing with the powerlifting. I wanted to set a world record. When I did that, I wanted to set another one. And then when I won the Worlds, I wanted to go win it again. And all of a sudden, there's no cap to that.
Yeah.
And, the same thing with hunting. My dream was to take an elk with a bow. And when I took that elk, then I wanted to take a brown bear. Then when I took that brown bear, I wanted to take a moose. And then when I took the moose, I wanted to take a polar bear. All of a sudden, there's no cap to that. And you know something? As I was going through, I was a self-made king.
Wow.
I don't know how else to explain it. Anything I wanted to do by persistence, I did it. And there was no cap to it. There was no end to it. But, God grabbed me at just the right time.
Yep.
And said, I have a purpose for you. And you know something? I can honestly tell you, it's not being wealthy. It's not being famous. It's not accomplishing the things that I thought were what I wanted to do. I have the joy of a 5-year-old kid in my heart again because I have a purpose. Mm-hmm. And it has nothing to do with money or fame or I love to bow hunt yet. I love to...
you love to go bow fishing.
Yeah, but that really, to me, to be able to share that and to let kids know that God gave us these tools and these things to do, that we can do them, and He's got a purpose for us. And, man, what's really been cool, too, is in the time that we've been doing Kicking Bear, watching these kids grow up. Some of the camps right now are 18, 20 years. We've been doing annual camps in the same area.
Yeah.
And these kids have grown up. They're married, and they've come back, and they've become mentors to other kids and being a part of the camps and helping out. I've seen it full circle. Mm-hmm. And people say to me, well, Ray, we don't hear too much about Kicking Bear. I want to tell you something. We are so busy doing what we do that I really don't have time to run around telling everybody what we do. Everything we do is about word of mouth. But in the communities that we are in, it's been pretty amazing what God has done. Mm-hmm. And Cal Ferguson wrote a letter to me 2 years ago. They had their 10th camp. And that letter said to me, he said, Ray, we set out to change some kids in our community through Kicking Bear. But in 10 years' time, this has changed our community. And I'm going to tell you something, Matt. I didn't see that. But, we have the DNR there. We got the police officers there. There's all kinds of people there that come there to help with the kids, and it breaks the walls down.
Wow.
So I ain't that good. All I can tell you is God's had a grip on me, and He's guided me, and I kept to my promise, and I don't plan on retiring. He's going to take me home in the middle of a marshmallow fight or something, but it's fun stuff.
That's awesome. So, and like I said, we wanted to have you on here, Ray, so we could tell your story so people can understand, what a kid goes through growing up if he's put in certain circumstances without a father, what can go wrong, how you can be turned, and who's out there for you. Because, like I said, one person kind of changed your route, as far as where you were heading. And look what you've accomplished, and look what you are doing right now. And people out there, if you want to help in these situations and give a helping hand, go to the Kicking Bear website, Facebook page, and help a kid. Become a mentor. Go to these events and help out. You'd be surprised at what you can do for a kid and how you can change their life by being with them in the outdoors and changing their lifestyle. So Ray, we can't thank you enough for coming on our podcast today and joining us and telling us your story and what you've accomplished and what you are doing these days for kids. And we'll be there. That AMS Bowfishing will be there to help you out if anything is needed. But thank you, Ray, for joining us today on the Bowfishing Buzz Podcast.
Well, thank you, Matt. And I'll tell you, ever since we've gotten together and done what we love to do, and that's chasing fish, I've had fun.
Yes,
and the cool thing is when we've got to take kids out, and if anybody thinks that it's a job or a chore to help the kids, I'm going to tell you something. When you get out there goofing around like what we do and doing it with a kid, I'll tell you what, you're going to have more fun than that kid is. You're laughing your head off.
That's right.
And,
yep.
It's not, I don't know how to explain that, but we had fun with it. So,
that's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the blessing of doing what you do and having the opportunity to be on the show with you here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ray, and I look forward to getting on the water with you and pinching some fish.
That sounds good. All right. You have a blessed day.
You too, Ray. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
Yep. Bye, Matt.
Bye-bye.
You know, Matt, I've heard bits and pieces of how Ray got Kicking Bear going. I've never heard it in that much detail. And I think just with hearing that, it makes it so much easier to understand why he dropped all of those accomplishments that he's doing to go and do this for these kids.
Right.
It really is inspirational. It's a special man that God put on this earth.
Right. And to be able to, like I said, you don't hear stories like this out there.
No.
You hear breaking records, and, you hear all those records of the guys that are, winning this and winning that. You don't hear these type of stories out there where somebody is making a difference in somebody's life.
Yeah.
We need more of these stories out there. We need more people to help out at stuff like this here. And because it changes somebody's life. Like in Ray's story. The one guy saw him reading a hunting magazine.
Yeah, that's all it took. That's all it took to spark that.
And look where he is now.
Yep.
It's simply amazing. So, we need people out there to help at events like this here. Like I said, you can go to the Kicking Bear website. You can put an application in to become a mentor. You can help out at these events. There's events going all across the states. Bowfishing is part of it also. We go there and we take kids out bowfishing. They have a blast. So this is a story that I just kind of wanted to get out there and let people know that there's more to trophies. There's more to winning this and winning that.
Yep.
There's more to life than that, because if you go watch some of the stories about some of these kids on the Kicking Bear website, you'll realize that you can make a difference in somebody's life.
Yeah, and I know, Matt, here a couple of years ago, you and I went down on the Mississippi River and we met Ray. And we took some kids out. And just like how he was saying, too, how you can totally see that kid's whole mindset change when you're in the outdoors. I remember seeing that on the boat with a couple of the kids that we had out. It was really cool. They'd never done it before, totally new to them. That's just one of the things I think that's Ray was trying to explain. That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yep. So, what do you think, Schmitty?
I think that was a heavy hitting, is the heaviest podcast we've had, but very informational, inspirational, and I'm really glad that we had Ray on to tell his story.
Absolutely. Just to go to show that anybody out there can make a difference in a young man or woman's life.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is looking for help. They're looking for help. They're looking for that.
Yep.
So, with that, I think we'll wrap up this episode of the Bowfishing Buzz Podcast, presented by AMS Bowfishing and
Megamouth Bowfishing.
From all of us at AMS Bowfishing, we wish you the best. And remember, aim low,
think big. Thanks for listening, guys.